And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and he delivered them into the hands of the Philistines 40 years. Judges 13:1. During this time of crisis, the Israelite tribes were ruled by judges. Judges were rulers and military leaders who could also preside over legal hearings. God chose a particular judge to deliver Israel from their Philistine oppressors. His name was Samson. In 1156 BC, an angel appeared to the wife of Manoah. The angel told her that although she was barren, she would conceive and bear a son. The child would be a Nazirite who would begin to deliver the Israelites out of the hands of the Philistines. Samson was born and grew, and the Lord blessed him. When Samson grew older, he desired a wife, one of the daughters of the Philistines. Samson's father and mother disapproved, but they did not know that this thing was done by the Lord, because he sought an occasion against the Philistines. Samson went down to the Philistine town of Thamnathah to propose to the Philistine woman that had pleased his eyes. On the way there, Samson yet a young roaring lion. The Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson, and he tore it to pieces with his bare hands. After some days, Samson returned to take the woman who was his wife. But Samson also went aside to see the carcass of the lion he had killed. Behold, there is a swarm of bees in the skull of the lion, and a honeycomb. Samson ate the honey, and gave some to his mother and father. But Samson told no one where the honey came from. Samson's father then made a feast for Samson, because he had just married his wife. At the feast were 30 Philistines. Samson proposed a riddle to them. If they answered the riddle within 7 days, Samson would give them 30 shirts and 30 coats. But if they could not, they would give Samson 30 shirts and 30 coats. The riddle was, out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And the Philistines, in 3 days, could not expound the riddle. The 30 Philistine men could not figure out the riddle, so they asked Samson's wife to soothe Samson and persuade him to tell her the riddle. Samson's wife went and begged Samson to tell her. Samson finally gave in and told her the answer. She immediately betrayed him and told her countrymen. Because Samson's wife betrayed him, the Philistine men got the answer. They said, "What is sweeter than honey? And what is stronger than a lion?" Samson said to them, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you had not found out my riddle." And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ascalon, and slew there 30 men, whose garments he took away, and gave to them that had declared the riddle. And being exceedingly angry, he went up to his father's house. But his wife took one of his friends, and bridal companions for her husband. From Judges 14:18-20. After a while, Samson tried to visit his wife, but her father would not suffer him, saying, "I thought thou hast hated her, and therefore I gave her to thy friend. But she hath a sister, who is younger and fairer than she. Take her to be your wife, instead of her." And Samson answered him, "From this day I shall be blameless in what I do against the Philistines, for I will do you evils." After this, Samson caught 300 foxes, coupled them tail to tail, with torches fastened between the tails. Samson set the torches on fire, and let the foxes go. The foxes, with torches between their tails, ran through the Philistine cornfields, vineyards, and olive gardens, burning them to the ground. The Philistines figured out why Samson had attacked them, and burned both Samson's wife and her father-in-law. Samson said he would avenge his wife and father-in-law, although they betrayed him. Samson then made a great slaughter of the Philistines, who had killed his wife. After this, Samson dwelt in the cavern of the rock of Etam. The Philistines then came up against the people of Judah. The people of Judah said, "Why are you come up against us?" The Philistines answered, "We are come to bind Samson, and to pay him for what he hath done against us." Then 3,000 men of Judah came to the rock of Etam, where Samson was staying. Samson then consented to be bound by his own people, and delivered to the Philistines, just as Christ allowed himself to be handed over by his own people to the Romans. After Samson was handed over to the Philistines, the Spirit of the Lord came over him. Samson broke the bands which bound him, grabbed a jawbone of an ass, and slew 1,000 Philistines. But the Lord heard Samson's prayer, and opened a great tooth in the jawbone of the ass, and waters issued out of it. And when Samson drank the water, he refreshed his spirit, and recovered his strength. Later Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah. The princes of the Philistines came to Delilah, and asked her to deceive Samson, and find the source of his strength. The Philistines offered her 1,100 pieces of silver. Delilah, after many attempts, persuaded Samson to tell her the source of his strength. Samson told her, "The razor hath never come upon my head, for I am a Nazarite, that is to say, consecrated to God from my mother's womb. If my head be shaven, my strength shall depart from me, and I shall become weak, and I shall be like other men." Delilah then had Samson's hair cut in his sleep, and delivered him to the Philistines. Samson then lost his strength, and his eyes were ripped out by his enemies. The Philistines then made Samson a prisoner in Gaza, bound him in chains, and made him grind on a treadmill. Samson's hair began to grow back, and the Philistines, while having a great feast in the temple of Dagon, demanded that Samson be taken out of prison and put between two pillars in order to entertain them. After being mocked, Samson, being blind, asked his guide to bring him to the two pillars that supported the temple so he could rest. Samson then called upon the Lord, saying, "O Lord God, remember me, and restore to me now my former strength, O my God, that I may revenge myself on my enemies, and for the loss of my two eyes I may take one revenge." And laying hold of both pillars on which the temple rested, and holding the one with his right hand and the other with his left, he said, "Let me die with the Philistines." And when he strongly shook the pillars, the temple fell on all the princes, and killed everyone in the temple. With arms outstretched, Samson gave up his life, and destroyed the temple of Dagon. Samson was a prefigurement to Jesus Christ. Both the birth of Samson and Christ were foretold by an angel. Samson's name means the Son. One of Christ's titles is Son of Righteousness, Malachi 4:2. Samson spent time in the wilderness at the rock of Etam. Christ spent 40 days in the desert. Samson kills a lion with his bare hands. Christ defeats the devil, who is called a roaring lion, 1 Peter 5:8. Both were betrayed for pieces of silver. Samson was chained to a treadmill, like Christ was chained to a pillar. With his arms outstretched, Samson gave up his life and destroyed the temple of Dagon. Like Christ, with his arms outstretched, gave up his life and destroyed death.